Right, evening all. This one's a bit unplanned. I've got a little bit of extra time to do some sculpting. I've got to crack on and finish these little devils I've been working on. I thought I might as well stream it up and show it off while I'm on it. So I've done a few of them. I've sculpted the base model already. Excuse me, my pen's not working, so I'm just going to reboot my tablet. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so I've been working through some Patreon releases for the general monthly stuff for Descent into Avernus, the D&D module. I've been doing it since probably back end of last year, I think. So most of my monthly releases have followed the campaign as we've gone along. So I suppose going back, the first release in the set was the Mercenary Company. So the Mercenary Company, I've called them Captain Zed's Mercenary Company, but it's basically my kind of interpretation and iteration of the Flaming Fist Mercenaries, and Captain Zod, who's the kind of the hook at the beginning of the Descent into Avernus campaign. So if you're not familiar with it, he basically sends you on an information gathering mission in Baldur's Gate. So we've got this whole kind of story arc that's mapped out. Now I missed out a few sections, and if I remember right, there was one that was it was a big tavern release that I wanted to get done for the Elf Song Tavern that you encounter at the beginning of the beginning of that quest, and I'd planned to do all of the models for it. I think Victis dropped a big tavern release around about the same time, and I was like, I can't just jump on their heels and just do the same thing. So I skipped ahead a little bit, and I think I went into cultists and the Cult of Morkel and Cult of Bale and Cult of Cain. They're not called that in the D&D module. That was just what I called them. But that was where I jumped into. So I missed this chunk with like a bathhouse and a tavern. So there's a few models I'll probably go back and still sculpt at some point to kind of plug these gaps. But aside from that, I think every encounter, every kind of designated bad guy encounter and NPC that you meet throughout this campaign, I've actually kind of not managed to release and do, but like in my own version. So that there's no. I've read the character descriptions, kind of like, you know, got into the head of the character and kind of thought this is what I think they look like. This is what how they should be in my head. So hopefully you can read them and, you know, interpret them the same. The critical details that are given you'll find on the models. So I think when you come to do the Low Lantern, is it Low Lantern? There's a tavern set I released which I've called the Low Light Tavern. And it's a full tavern set. It's designed to map out and plan with the Low Lantern tavern. So the furniture's, the bar's the right shade, the sofas and everything, and the tables and chairs, they're all you know, they're all perfect to fit with the actual kind of official layout and official floor plans. So with that release, there's the first of the Spine Devils comes in. And I sculpted it and I put it out there, and then later on I went and did the Bearded Devils. So if you've not seen my Bearded Devils, let me just pull them up on screen now because I've got a few of them here. So these are a few of my Bearded Devils. In fact, here's the full release of them, I think. This is the full release of the Bearded Devils. That's them. So that's what they all look like. So any Warhammer players in the group, you know, you can kind of grab these guys and use them as a unit, because, you know, they do stand together as a unit. And then we've got the well, do you know what, I've just realised I need to get Facebook up, because last time I streamed it went onto Facebook and there was basically every single person who was watching on Facebook got completely ignored, because I didn't see the comments until about 6 hours after the stream. So I'm just going to get the stream up on the screen so I can see them. because for some reason my my Twitch is not giving me, or my Streamlabs rather, isn't giving me any of the Facebook comments. So I'll just pop it there so I can see. Okay, right then. So yeah, the Bearded Devil release then. I kind of did a little bit of styling on these guys where I made them look a little bit well, Greek infantry and Greek hoplites and stuff was my kind of inspiration for them. It's very, very, very crude. It's very, you know, I didn't want to kind of go very obviously Greek, but I did follow that kind of suit. And then I kind of got this aesthetic for them, but my spine devils didn't match. So the spine devil that I did for Amric Van Thamper, his bodyguard, the spine devil didn't have any armour or anything like that. So as nice as the model as it was, it's now kind of out of styling with the rest of these guys for the Infernal Legion. So the Barbazu, the Bearded Devils here, they've got this kind of like styling on the armour. So my aim was to then go back, revisit the Bearded Devils and give them a similar look. So we've got so far 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 4 devils in this group. Which is that? Is that the one I need to move? Yeah. So if I move this guy, you'll see them better. Where is he? Oh. So yeah, so we've got 4 devils in this group so far. I've just got to do another one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the upper body of this guy on the left, and I've got the legs of this guy on the right. My plan is I'm going to take the two, bash them together, and kind of do a little bit of a pose adjustment on the arm. That will make this guy a little bit more what's the word? Well, unique, for lack of a better phrase. So yeah, I'll mirror the legs. So the legs are, in fact, I might have already done that. Oh, Adam, thanks for the follow, mate. Welcome to the stream. So I've got the there, legs, random hidden legs somewhere. I'll take these legs over here. I'll just quickly show you this. This is kind of kit bashing existing models together. I'm going to take the legs, going to bring this down, and the legs, you can already see they've been flipped on a horizontal axis, horizontal axis here. So they're the mirror image of this side. Now, the one thing I've got to be careful of here, if I decide to flip the upper body, the shoulder pad always sits on the left shoulder, and then the cloth that attaches the shoulder pad to the body, like a little bandolier kind of thing, this goes around from that shoulder and around the body. If I flip the upper body, that is going to change direction entirely, which means I'm going to then have to flip it back, swing it back around, reposition it and make it kind of fit. Otherwise I'm going to have that one model that clearly looks like it's been flipped. I don't really want that. So let's just take this guy's legs, bring them back. I'll try and position them as best I can so that they fall into the correct position, which is roughly about there. You can see the cut here. I'll position the body here. Make sure I've got my axis right, and then I'm going to bring that body down and just position it back and forwards until it's where I need it to be. And I think I'm almost there. Go up a little bit, and I'll just bring that. I'll just pull his stomach down to suits. So I'm just going to move topological now. And I can grab his abdomen there, bring it down, and pull it in line with the stomach. Okay, Oops, don't want to do that with a wing. I think the back is okay. Although actually the whole body is a little bit far forward. So you can see this is open here, and what I actually need to do is close holes. And that will just seal up the bottom of this body here. I can just bring that back a little bit. If I unhide, I've got to be a little bit careful, just don't want it to be sticking through. I want a decent sized ridge around there, but I don't need like all of that. I think I've probably got the body a little bit too far to the right, to be fair. So, where am I at? Oh yeah, so this is right down here because the spear goes all the way down. When I press this button here, that will locate the widget into the middle of the active geometry, which is fine most of the time, except this time that is including the length of this spear that comes all the way down here. So it's not particularly helpful for me right at the moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this arm, I'll just hide everything else for a minute. I'm going to take this arm and I'm going to reposition it. So I'm going to take just isolate the body. Come up here and just isolate the arm from the just below the bicep to just above that spike on the back of the elbow. Come back around the other side, just make sure I've got it. And I'm just going to unmask this. Now I'm going to come back in and sculpt over the joint, so any grogginess, or I don't know what you want to call it, any kind of like any roughness here in this joint when it transforms, that'll be kind of lost in the final version of the model anyway. So just unmask all of that, and then I'm just going to come to the elbow joint, which I can't see because of these wings, so I'm just going to hide the wings a minute. Or the one wing, because that's all I need. Bring it up, bring it over to about the middle of the joint, I think. And I can just rotate it around forwards like that. Now, we've got this kind of crappy bit at the back of the elbow, so I'll sort that out in a minute. And the bicep needs to kind of bulge out a little bit more now, because as the arm's pulled up, the bicep will be kind of tensed. And then I just need to clean up this little back joint here, so I'll probably just nudge this around a little bit just to kind of get the kind of look I'm looking for. In fact, I think I'm going to rotate the elbow out as well while I'm on it, just to give it more of a, it'll be kind of like that with the spear, so it'll be up to the side, or the trident rather. I say trident, it might as well be a spear. If you're a D&D player, you probably know what I mean. If you're not a D&D player, a trident is just a very expensive, jazzy looking spear in the game. As much as you want it to be something a bit more cool, probably a bit more defensive maybe, feel a bit more gladiatorial, unfortunately it's not the case. So okay, now I've got this like manky wrist joint, so I'm going to have to, oh no, I can fix that, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine, I'll live with that, that's not a problem. Gotta remask off all this stuff here, because I kind of did a bodge job of the masking then, which isn't amazing. Okay, so, and I just need to mask the hand out. The only thing I want unmasked is this trident. Right, now the trident might look, oh god, I missed a lot more there I think. The trident might look a little bit bulky. The thing to note here is that these guys are small. They're not even human sized. They are, you know, they're small humanoids. So I don't know, maybe like a little goblin. There we go. And then of course I need to adjust the head too, so I might have the head looking to the right in this case I think. We'll rotate the legs a touch. We'll go for the middle of the waist for that one, so it rotates nicely and I don't have to do too much more moving. Okay, so that's grab the move the move topological brush, which will just mean I won't move any of this material here unless I specifically click on it. I'm just going to be moving the body mass. Okay, isolate that, and then isolate this vast mass of head spines. And I just need to block his head out. So I've got my mask lasso. Everything's already masked off, so I'm just going to invert the mask around his head. Tap a few times on the neckline with the control button depressed, and that will soften the blend line, or the mask line rather. And now I can bring this up, pop it in the middle of the neck joint, give or take. I was going to rotate it around so it follows that jawline. There we go. So that is, no, I need to come left a little bit. That's pretty dead centre for the head. And I want to turn the head to the right now. Down, and I'll straighten it back up again. Right, now these things you can see are the eyes that are still in the original position because I forgot to unmask them, so I'm just going to switch the head back, get into the middle. I'm just going to unmask this chunk here. Well, there the eyes are, and then rotate again. Now the eyes aren't visible, so it's not the it's not a massive deal. However, it's worth getting them right, isn't it? It saves me having to like find them all and remove them so they don't accidentally show through. Just notice I've got, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got these weird stretched polygons on the back here. So I definitely need to come and sort them out. I've also managed to mash up a bit at the bottom of the wing, I think, so yeah, it's the wing tip just around here. I'll have to just restore that and work that back in. So I'll just mask off everything right here again, and then I should be able to rotate again without the issues. Max, welcome to the stream, mate. Yeah, I was I was planning tonight to do some work on Crystal Collapse, but then I thought the artwork's so beautiful for that. That Max had commissioned. I really need to kind of do it some justice. So I'm going to plan a couple of streams in just to work on the Crystal Collapse models. Temple of the West. Welcome in. Yeah, so the Crystal Collapse game we talked about before. Posted a few pictures on social media, on the Patreon tribes and back in the Lion Tower group. Richard, welcome to the stream, mate. Good to have you here. So yeah, so we've I was going to pull a picture up of the stream actually, not stream, the tabletop simulator that we ran, just so you can see what we're dealing with. So we're at a point with this game now where it's looking really smart. We're very pleased with the way it's playing. We've been playing a little bit of the. Is this working? Yeah, you can see on that. We've been playing a little bit of the. I haven't done any skeletons recently, Richard. Yes, Kev, it's a late one tonight, mate. I haven't done anything for, well, all weekend pretty much, and then I thought I need to get on board and do a little bit more. And I'm very close to pushing the Twitch affiliate rankings, hitting the various different thresholds I need to meet. And one of the things I need to do is get another 3 streams in before the month ends. So here's one of them. So another 2 more. Yeah, yes, Facebook and Twitch at the same time. Except the Facebook comments. Oh, they are coming on. I've not been seeing the Facebook comments coming up in my what do you call it, Streamlabs. So yeah, I've just been trying to catch up and run them both, but Facebook seems to have crashed out, so it's not working. So yeah, so what you're looking at on screen here now, on the bottom screen, this is the tabletop simulator game that me and Max played the other day. So we were full into it. We've got the game board commissioned up. Oh, cheers, Kev. Thanks, much appreciated. Yeah, so this is what the tabletop simulator looks like. I believe the rocks and the barrels are generic assets that Max has bought in along with his crystals, but the character pieces and the board, the character cards and everything else, they're all custom that we've had designed for the game. Like literally that board was literally finished the same day we played the game. I think Max was so excited he managed to get it straight into the game without any messing. So we're going to be looking to bring on some beta testers for it soon. So if anybody's interested, we've got the Discord channel. We've got a playtesters group on there. So we're just taking some volunteers who want to do it. So if you send me a DM offline, if you want to join the playtesters group, I'll send you the invite links and get you in the group and everything else. And then when we've Max is German, so he's written the game in native German and has progressively been working through the translations. So we're at a point now where the translation is pretty spot on. There's a little bit of polishing still needed before we put it out to the public, just to make sure that everything works exactly as intended. But the last playthrough we had was like, it was super slick, it was super smooth, it just went well, do you know what I mean? And yeah, we were very, very pleased with it and how it all went. So we're going to be oh, good stuff, Kev. It'd be good to have you on board with that one. I'll say, if you're already in my Discord server, then I'll set you up. Just ping me on there, and I'll set you as a playtester. If not, then I'll send you the link in a bit. So yeah, so we're looking at probably early next year to bring this to Kickstarter, hopefully. So I've been working my way through sculpting the models. We've got some nice sculpts going on. I'll just quickly show you a couple of the ones we've got. I'm sure Max won't mind. We've got some nice, a couple of figures. We've done two guys called Corrado and Roland, who are the two you can see at the bottom right hand side in the blue. I'm actually going to do a stream at some point fairly soon with Max, where we're going to play this on stream, and we'll have a little talk about it and chat through, so you can kind of see what's going on. But yeah, if you're liking the Final Fantasy type stuff, it's very much kind of Final Fantasy Tactics type gameplay. It's got the kind of the Final Fantasy kind of aesthetic, which obviously you all know I like. And then we've got the characters here, so I'll just bring this down, and you can see the first couple of characters we've got. So we've got Corrado on the left, we've got Roland on the right, we've got their miniatures here. Now we may still tweak the faces a little bit, or the body. I think Roland's body needs to slim down a little bit, because we had a chat about it the other day, and he's a little bit too bulky. Corrado's fine; he can be a hench unit anyway, because he's he's badass. But we want Roland to be a little bit more typically anime, and you can see his picture. Obviously, he looks like a little boy. So we're gonna make sure that comes across. Thanks for the follow, Rick and Smith. This is where we're at. Each faction has 4 models in each side. So we're going to bring the core game and have the 2 factions plus a couple of mercenaries and possibly like a big bad guy. And then the plan is that we would make multiple iterations of the game with like new campaigns. It's similar to the way Infinity does. You get like the new board and new scenery pieces, 2 new factions or models for new factions, and then you'll have a follow up with the what do you call it? Diaphos expansion that they do. I quite like the way that works, and it'll kind of keep new releases coming, keep things fresh. So Max is full of beans and full of energy and excitement for the project. He's getting really into the whole story side of things. So yeah, we've got the first few scenarios ready to rock. I believe he's working on some tutorial scenarios to kind of give you the interest of the gameplay. And then our next big objective before we get this out to you guys for playtesting on Tabletop Simulator will be basically to get that like 1 page of rules, that 1 page quick reference sheet that says this is how you play the game in the simplest form, and then we'll have an advanced rule set that will follow that, but we want that kind of crib sheet that you can refer to. So we are very close to that now. We'll be bringing the characters to the stream here. So the plan is that the artwork for the next few characters. Let me just see if I've got the one I'm going to be doing next, because she's a beautiful character. Her name's Victoria. She's got a little friend with her. Where have I put it? I know I've saved them down somewhere. Here we go. Kevin, there you go. Here we go. So this is Victoria. She is the next character that's going to be getting made. I'll be sculpting her live on the stream as well. So I won't show you any of the others just yet, because they are cracking characters, but we're gonna have a slow reveal on these and start like drip feeding them out to you. So she'll be the next one that you'll see being made. can't remember. Max, I don't know if you want to chip in, but I can't remember what the little squirrel dude's called. Or even actually, does he have a part in the game? Is he purely aesthetic, or does he actually have a role in game? Because thinking about it, I think he should have a role in game. He should definitely do something if he's Thanks for the like, Hobby Corner. Cheers, Kev. You spam away, mate. Okay, right, so we've got this guy now is slightly reposed, his arm's back. I need to obviously just get back in and do some adjusting with the sculpts, so where his wrist is. If you were there at the beginning, you'll have seen I mangled the hell out of this wrist. So I'm just going to use the dynamic tessellation on the Sculptress Plus mode. Put a wrist back in, the wrist bones, sculpting a few, well, I say sculpting, give the impression of the tendons in the front of the hand, and then just re-sculpt the palm and the thumb, just so you've got a bit of definition to that area. And again, with these guys, they're going to be absolutely tiny, so like I say, goblin sized, very, very skinny. Alien Glow Ash. Thank you for the follow, mate. So yeah, the detail on these, I've got to kind of keep it quite coarse, quite broad. Don't want to go too dialed in because, again, they're going to be printed goblin sized. The first one I had some real issues with because I did all these little spines on him. And when I was trying to print the guy, it just didn't want to work. The spines were just so awkward, so fiddly. I just kept getting these little fails, these little flat spots on the model, where the supports just couldn't deal with it. So, drink my bucket of tea. I had my mum and dad round the weekend. Random tangent. It always makes me laugh. I'll drink about 6 or 7 of these in a day. And my mum and dad, they always drink out of these really skinny, tall, narrow teacups. I don't know if anyone else drinks out of these things. But like, it's probably about 3 of those in one of these cups, and they just come around and they just complain all the time. We're giving them too much tea. Like, that's even a thing. Here we go. Right, so I'm just going to just fix out some of the manky geometry. And again, really small model. You're not going to see half of this. If I start sculpting anything exactly careful, that's exactly what I always say. No such thing as too much tea. I mean, coffee can coffee can give you the jitters, can't it, if you have too much of that stuff, but there's no such thing as too much tea. Not for an Englishman. Okay, so yeah. And then yes, because I've taken this model from another one, I've copied the upper body from one of my other poses. I just need to remember that some of these details of sculpting, like the scars and scratches and things, they are not going to be unique to this model, so they do need to be changed. Otherwise, you're going to notice too obviously that they're another model. You find a lot of sculptors do a very similar thing when they're doing like sets of models. It's basically this way of sculpting less stuff and getting more models out, really. But obviously, if you want a consistent set like this, you kind of really need to do a little bit of it. But yeah, you just take the assets you've got and just repose and rework them a little bit to fit the, you know, to make multiples and duplicates and stuff, and then you just do like a new face or something like that. In this case, I can't even really do a new face because their heads are all covered over with these cowls and these hoods. So it'll be more a case of making sure that, like, you know, there's different like wind effects and things like that, and you know, the faces are the little notches and the rips and tears and things like that in the cowl aren't necessarily all in the same place. Doesn't matter if one or two are, but it's all about kind of creating that kind of that differentiation. So yeah, hopefully we start seeing when you put the group together, you kind of get the idea that there's similar poses, but they shouldn't look like carbon copies. And that's all I really need out of these, because it's just to give you a bit of variety. A lot of gamers are quite happy to just have one model and print it a dozen times and put it on the table, and you know, if all you want is something to represent the piece on the table, then that's absolutely fine. But I want to try and achieve the look of an infernal army here, so I'll give you at least these 5 unique poses. So you can take these guys, put them on a table, and you've literally got some, you know, some unique looking guys to harangue your adventurers. So once I've done these guys and they're locked out, they're locked down now, I'm going to call them complete for now. The next thing I need to do is I need to do the Merigons. Now Merigons crop up in my to-do list. I haven't got my phone with me now, but if I remember right now, there's encounters with Spine Devils mixed with Merigons. You get like 3 Spine Devils and 1 Merigon, and then there's another one with a couple of Merigons and Kev, sorry mate, you've lost me there. Classic Hero Quest style is fine, but this is much better. Are you talking like the hero, the bad guys having like just one skeleton, like 10 times over kind of thing? Is that what you? Yeah. I get you now. You completely threw me mentioning Hero Quest then, because I was thinking I did those Hero Quest skeletons, the skeleton versions of the heroes, if that makes sense. I don't know if you ever saw them actually, but I was quite pleased myself with them, and nobody seemed to get the joke. If you missed them, I'll see if I can find a picture of them in a minute, but I did the dwarf, the elf, the wizard and the barbarian from the very original Hero Quest game. But I thought they're so old now, they've just kicked the bucket in a dungeon somewhere, so I've actually done them as skeletons. So they've got the same armour, the same equipment, even the same pose I think I used from the original models, but they are just skeletons. So let's see if I can find a render of them. Haley's been re-rendering everything recently, so we've got the all these new renders, and I should have them all together. Let me show you. So I'm quite pleased with myself for this one, but like I say, I showed dozens of people and none of them have played Hero Quest, and it absolutely baffled me. I was like, how can you call yourself a gamer and have never played Hero Quest? Come on, where are you? It's under C for classic. My office is just starting to warm up a little bit now. I've had to actually put the heater on down here because it's like 12 degrees when I came in. I don't think it's even 12 degrees outside, so God knows how it's 12 degrees in my office. There we go. So there's my barbarian and the dwarf and the elf and the wizard. You'll see the staff's the same, the clothes are all the same but tattered. Same sword, bag, belt, the works. The axe is the same. The hat, the chainmail, the belt buckle even. So I've taken as many details from the original models as possibly could and just tattered them all up. So, Kev, if you're under 30, yes, yes, Rich, I know your opinion on the skeletons. I know you're loving them. How are you getting on with the naked guys? Have you managed to get them printing all right? I should qualify naked skeletons. They're just like the Jason and the Argonaut style ones. Actually, I did a whole range of skeleton models again for the Descent into Avernus thing. I needed some. I did a whole load of skeletons, and they print amazingly well. But I was really riding the line between making them chunky enough that they're gameable, that you can actually use them in a game, and kind of skinny enough that they were realistic. So yeah, I've got the guys with like clothes and bits of armour and tatters and things like that on them, but I've also got the guys with none of that stuff. And I know Rich was very keen on the old Jason the Argonauts look, so I know he's got the proper Rudy Nudie skeletons. Stick them next to a wall with burnt shadows, it'll make a nice one. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, for definite. One dragon too many diorama. I just like the idea that you could use them in a Hero Quest game using the current set, send all the new modern adventurers in, and go and face down your the OG heroes as a quest. That was my thinking anyway, but a skeleton that's been down there for 30 years. So, nice one. Oh, you've kept the ones with the fails, have you then, Kev? Rich. I suppose, yeah, with a skeleton, if the leg fails or whatever else, you can just leave the leg off, can't you? Or lose an arm or whatever. It's no hardship. In fact, some of the ones I sculpted, I deliberately left arms off. So one of them's like dragging a great sword behind him, and then in his other hand, his arm's missing from the elbow down. So, I've done it deliberately on some of them. So why not, take advantage of a few. To be fair, is a missing head a big deal with a skeleton? I'm not even sure. Do they need the head? I know zombies do, don't they? But the skeletons need a head. Okay, so yeah, some Merrigans. I think that's how you call them, Mergons, Merrigans, I don't know. But in the D&D Avernus book, they show them as these like little hunchback guys. But then when I've been reading about them, and they have no faces. They're like the lowest. Are they the lowest? They're supposed to be like Devil Legion. So they're supposed to be like. I kind of see them as being a little bit. I want to say almost like 300, like the Spartans. I kind of feel like that, but I know they're supposed to be quite well armoured. So almost like if I take the mercenary company I did and just make them a bit devilly. So I'm thinking like clawed feet, like bare feet with like big gnarly toenails. Keep them fairly well armoured, so kind of like keep the armour layers up. And then obviously the face is it's a featureless head, and then they have a gold mask which is just bolted onto the face, and all of the masks are the same. So every Merrigan should be identical in essence. They have no personality or anything else. They're just mindless soldiers. So definitely, Rich, definitely. That was what I did. I used I think I used Skeleton Horde first to give them a good old all over kind of bony look. Didn't like the look of that on its own, so then I ended up using some diluted wildwood and pinlining some of the like the ribs and things, and then I think I went back in with ivory. I think it was Vallejo ivory on top of a bit of Ushabti bone. So I dry brushed the Ushabti bone across everything, and then I went in with a kind of some glazes of ivory just to pick up the highlights and kind of like take some of the roughness off I'd left with the dry brush. But they come together quite quickly. But you can't beat a good dry brushing session on a massive unit of skeletons, to be fair. Okay. Yeah. So the Mergons anyway. So they're going to be heavily armoured. They're going to be they're shown with halberds, but again, I don't think the actual description mentions the halberds. I'll have to just quickly double check, but I've got a feeling it's not quite that. It's not quite that explicit, I don't think. Again, I could be completely wrong here, but let's have a little check. So yeah, so just to give you a heads up on this one. So if you've watched the previous streams, I've got a concept art that I had an awesome artist called Dio Mahisa kind of make for me quite a while back now. So I gave him the brief, I gave him the character bio, the story that I'd written for these guys, and I said to him, look, this is what this guy's about. I need you to, give me an illustration to work from. So it's one of those it's one of those things where it's nice to have the artwork, but 9 out of 10 times I don't do it, and it takes me so long to actually draw a bit of artwork up that I just don't have the time to do it. I'm better off actually just getting straight into 3D and just concepting in 3D. So we're talking here now. So the Mergons, Mergon, whatever we're calling them, they've got a multi-attack with a halberd. So yes, it does. The stats do have halberd in there. Okay, so they've got to be armed with halberds then, basically. So they also have heavy crossbows. So looks like I'm going to have to do a couple of different versions of them with the different weapon options. So I might just do like 3 of each, say, just so you can mix and match. And then later on, if we end up encountering a bigger group through the campaign somewhere, I'll add a few extras in, because ideally I want to be able to kind of say, like, I think the guards. The guards I did 40 of them, and I'm sure there was about 20 odd were needed in the campaign, but you've got the option to kind of tick a lot more if you needed them. So we're looking at heavy armour, I think. Doesn't really mention the armour. So the souls of fallen soldiers, mercenaries and bodyguards who served evil without reservation often find everlasting servitude in the Nine Hells as Merigons. These faceless foot soldiers are the Hell's legionnaires, tasked with protecting the realm and its rulers against intruders. So they have the Mask of Uniformity, which is a metal mask bolted to its head. Okay, so the only element on the mask which gives it any identity is a brand of its commander and the layer of the Nine Hells it's in. So yeah, there's not any more information about him here. The image is pretty. I mean, this is the image. This is what they've put in the book. But I don't like that. It just reminds me of 300, the little hunchback guy. It's the traitor. It just reminds me of him, and that doesn't feel right to me for the way they've described these guys with this demonic legion. It doesn't sit right. So I think I'm going to make them a bit more upright. I'm going to make them a bit more hefty, a bit more chunky. Okay, so I'm just going to save this out now, because this is these guys done for now. I think I need to do that rocking a bit, but I'll deal with that later. So I need my... Okay, human base mesh I've got. So this is one I purchased the original one online because I like the proportions of it, and I've since gone in and reworked, resculpted, added some more detailed anatomy to it. So these guys are going to be kind of like mercenaries and people who've served evil, committed evil acts, served evil bosses and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, they're going to be spending eternity paying for it, essentially. Thank you for the follow, Gina Doherty. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. Okay, so I'm going to drop some armour in. Now this is armour that I made for the skeleton. And again, I'm showing you a workflow here that isn't, what's the word? It's not like a standard workflow. If you see a lot of people on YouTube and they want to show you kind of how to, you know, be flashing everything, they're going to show you how to make everything from a sphere. You know, I made all of this from one little sphere, which is great, but you know, it's not really what it's not conducive when you're doing production stuff. You've got to kind of take shortcuts, or you'll just never get anything done. So yeah, pre-made base mesh. I've got a whole component library. So if anybody's a 3D printer, Rich, I know you are. If you've got your 3D printer going on, if you're one of my Patreons, you get access to a whole library of you get access to a whole library of components, which is just full of armour, weapons, animals, pets, but you know, basically anything I sculpt, anything I create new goes in there. So, you know, make a halberd, it's going in. This armour almost certainly is in there. So it's not necessarily going to get used completely as is without any changes, but it will give me a good starting point. Now, the other thing is, I did obviously mention earlier that the Infernal Legions, I've got this kind of Greek aesthetic going on. So I probably want to kind of maintain that a little bit. I could go full plate mail, really make this like, you know, look like a proper knight. But I've got a feeling this is going to be more effective if I go and steal some of this Greek aesthetic. So I'm going to give him the, I don't know if there's a proper term for it, but the like the Greek skirt with the leather straps. That sounds like something kinky, doesn't it? But no, you know the little leather hanging bands with the metal studs and whatever else that are just there for, are they there for decoration? They serve a purpose? Is it going to stop the stop a sword blow? I don't know. So so yeah, so I'll probably give them that. What do you guys think? Should these guys be hunched over a bit more? Should they be upright? Do I go for something that's a little bit more tormented looking, maybe? Easy, boys. Calm it down. Save the fisticuffs for Chilcon. No brawling at my stand then. Okay, so I'm going to lose these shoulder pads and these. Again, I don't even know what to call, thigh plates kind of thing. I've got some boots here. We can have the boots. No, I'm going to give them clawed feet, didn't I? So yeah, they're going to have clawed toes. Just to keep the devil look going on. Do I give them a tail? The other devils have got tails. Can it? Oh, I know. Should I give him a? Should I put like a little toga type thing over the top of this armour? Handlebar tash. They don't have faces, Kev. They've got no facial features. I suppose it might be nice to draw a handlebar tash on with a marker pen if on some guy who's just got no facial features. Did you ever watch the oh god, what was he called now? Troll Hunters. The Troll Hunters cartoon. Watched the whole series with my little and absolutely loved it. I loved it probably more than him, to be fair. But there's these lot of goblins in there, and the one goblin that's always a leader. Whichever goblin becomes a leader, no matter how it happens, the status of a leader is shown by the fact that they pick up a marker pen and draw a little moustache on their face, and that's it. What the leader dies, then somebody else just picks up the marker pen and draws a moustache, and that's it. They're done. That's it. Okay, so do I turn this into a Greek style? Do I give it the six-pack type thing in the armour, maybe? Yeah, let's go on. There we go, decision made. Here's a decision for you guys. Nipple or no nipples? Armour plates with nipples or not? Do we have pole tools on Can I put poles up on the chat or anything? Or free nips? You're watching Total Recall again. I actually did the other night, and I forgot how good the original is, to be fair. I like the remake as well, actually. The remake of Total Recall is pretty good. So say I'll start with the there we go. Gina, just for you. There we go. belly button on the arm, Gina. Okay, so I'm going to come in. There you go, because why not, eh? What's going on there? This is me masking all the way through to the other side and creating some weird lumps on the back that I didn't mean to do. Okay, and Rich, that movie's got a lot to answer for, hasn't it? I did the same thing. Well, I say I did the same thing. I'd planned the same thing entirely, where I was going to take a, I think it was a 3D breed, another another digital sculptor, and he does all these like medieval, not medieval, sorry, like historical miniatures. And you know, it's weird as hell having like 4 nipples on the breastplate, but I actually quite like the look. I'm going to keep it. Yeah, the 3D breed. It was he did a Kickstarter called March to Hell, I think it was called, and quad nips. Yeah, hashtag quad nips has got a trend somewhere. The 3D breed Kickstarter. It was Spartans versus Persians, and you got like the whole set from both sides in 28mm and 15mm. Unfortunately, the sculpts were crocs. Oh, do you know what? I might just do. Why not? Eh? But yeah, the 3D breed Kickstarter. They did the Spartans and the Greek Legion, and they did the Persians. And I instantly I saw it and I thought, I'm just going to print 300 of these buggers out, and I'll just spam my table with them. And I'd intended them to be 28mm, but the way they've done the sculpts, I think they've sculpted them for 15mm, and then they've just turned a 15mm model into a 28mm model by making it bigger. So you sculpted a Necron flayed one with Crocs on, Kev. You need to send us a link for that. Okay, so he's going to have that. He's going to have a skirt on, so I'm just going to put the skirt on. There we go. There's a skirt. Oosh, have that. There you go. Okay, it's not a skirt. It's just the form for it. I'm going to use a circle to start me off. Use the move tools just to position it and shape it. There we go. I think what I might do is I may end up having to do a legion of these, and I might just put Crocs on just one, and you can have the tash as well. What do you reckon? Shame, Rich. Do you think they should all have Crocs? Okay, so there's the base skirt. Duplicate that. And I'm going to chop this one in half. Dynamesh it first. Chop it in half. the Kickstarter. Yeah, it's one of my bugbears with digital miniature sculpting. There's a lot of people do it. There's a lot of I know we spoke a bit about it at ChillCon, Rich, but you get a lot of yeah, I'll just put one of them in, and I'll make a unit of 10 of these guys, and there'll just be one guy there with a handlebar tash and Crocs, and yeah, you just have to see how many comments we get about that one guy. But yeah, I think we spoke about it a little bit at ChillCon. You get a lot of sculpts are designed for renders, and they look really nice, really highly detailed, but they've got really like realistic proportions. So like the hands, if you could scale this model up to like 6 foot tall or 5'8" or whatever, you'll find that the proportions of the model are pretty much realistic to human. And what will happen is these guys will have probably started with a realistic human base mesh, added all the details and stuff onto that, and then shrunk it down. And these are guys who have come from like a video game background, so they're making characters for video games who are supposed to look like actual human beings. You don't want necessarily. I know some games stylize them up and stuff like that, but a lot of they're going to teach you about anatomy and all this kind of stuff. When you're sculpting miniatures, you've got to kind of forget all of that pretty much. So, Toby, thanks for joining in, mate. Thanks for the follow. Good to have you on stream, mate. I thought I might see a few more people popping up if I do a later one. The usual 10 o'clock slot in the morning. It's not everybody's cup of tea because people are working and whatnot, but I'll try and do a few more evening ones now just to try and like pick other people up. But okay, Skyhawk just asked, how do I scale my models in ZBrush for print? Okay, so some of this is experience. So if I go back to, God's sake, this is making me feel really old now. So I started painting miniatures when I was 5 years old. I'm 38 now, so I've been painting miniatures for 33 years. When I had my first like proper serious girlfriend when I was 17, all my hobbying just kind of stopped. And 2 years down the line, I'm kind of sitting there looking at all this stuff, gathering dust, thinking I'll get rid of this. And I used to convert everything. Yeah, good to have you on board, Tobes. So yes, I used to convert every model in my army. So I had like a Skaven army, I had a Vampire Counts army, I had Tau, Elder, Blood Angels, I had Mordheim gangs, I had Necromunda gangs, I had loads and loads of stuff. Wood Elves I had. So when I had all of these models, I didn't want to just use all the stuff out of the box. And obviously back then we had metal models. This was before even plastic kits to a point. Plastic kits were still around, but not, there were like limited poses. I don't know if you remember the original plastic Space Marines where they had a few, and yeah, and Rich, yeah, exactly, the plastic skeletons and stuff like that. There's a few, the old GW plastic skeletons were ace. They were brilliant, and they were kind of my inspiration for what I did. Actually, I wanted to kind of get that kind of aesthetic back. But I used to convert everything, and then when 2 years down the line, I'm about like 19. Yeah, Kev, exactly, mate. So I sold everything. I literally sold everything, and every model I'd ever hacked up, all these metal models I'd bought, I chopped a head or a hand off and had a sword or whatever else. All the bits that remained, I'd kept. All the plastic sprues, I'd kept. I had a massive, great big box of bits. And when I sold everything, I think one guy came and had like 4 of my armies off me. It basically haggled for the bits box as well, and I let it go grudgingly. And about 6 months later, we split up. She'd gone off to university in Manchester, and it was like, I'm down in Birmingham at the time. You just can't maintain that kind of thing. Just like, it didn't work. So we split up, and I kind of went straight back to the models and started wanting to paint and kind of get back into it. except I've got nothing anymore. I've got no models, I've got no bits box or anything else. So I'm there buying new models from scratch, collecting new armies again, and then the green stuff would become available. So yeah, that skeleton army was the best one, I think, Rich. Definitely. 92. And that was when you could still have mummies and stuff, wasn't it? You could have mummies and vampires and zombies and ghouls and everything all in the one army, and you didn't have Tomb Kings and vampire counts back then. So I got back into it again, and I started using green stuff to modify my models. So I was like sculpting bits of models, I'm doing little minor conversions, and gradually started sculpting more and more and more and more. And let's see if I can find the. I've got just turning another hard drive on. I found some pictures a while back of some of my old commissions, and God, some of them are just funny, man. I did the one I think I found was I think it was called Scratch and Sniff. It was for a company called Magnificent Egos, and he was a goblin pimp. So he had his big like fluffy coat, he had his like big pimp hat, big feather in it. He had a walking cane with a rubber duck on the end. That was a that was a nice sculpt. I enjoyed that one. And I found a photo of it somewhere, like quite a while back now. But let me just check and see if I can find it. So I started sculpting in green stuff. So I ended up doing 4 models eventually, and then that became like a little sideline I was doing, and I did loads of commission work, and this is before Facebook and social media and everything like that, so you didn't really have an easy way into like a lot of these companies. You had to really kind of like struggle to find contacts, and it was just email people, phone people, and try and get in touch with them. So unless you're already in the industry, you're trying to break in from the outside, it was like tough as nails. So I got a few sculpting gigs, worked my way through, and then it was sculpting things actually in scale gives you a good insight into it. And I was trying to sculpt to match the Games Workshop scale as well, because it was obviously I was collecting Games Workshop armies. I collected other stuff as well, like Infinity, and I don't know if anyone remembers Void. I used to play that one too. So I had like the armies. I can't remember what they're called now. I want to call them Aleph, but I don't think they were. That's Infinity, isn't it? They're like little biomechanical type guys. And then the ones that were like Catachans, where they got like dinosaurs, like Dino Rider Catachans. They were great. They were, but they were that was one of the other armies I had. And then these other ones were like, they were all like sci-fi, like Japanese, high tech with like wings and stuff like that, mechanical wings. But they were all pretty cool anyway. But I think that game fizzled out. I don't know if it's still around or not. But I had all of those kind of things. I used to just convert everything. So I was always sculpting to try and fit one of these like styles, like the mainstream kind of games that I was playing. So you've got exaggerations with like the head. So the head needs to be probably about 40% larger than you'd think it would. Hands, you want them to be about the size of the head, which sounds obscene, but like if you look at a lot of miniatures, you'll find that particularly in 28mm scale, the hands are just ridiculously oversized, but they kind of need to be to work as a miniature. And you don't question it when you see the model, but if you see a render of a model on the screen, scaled like that next to a model that is being humanly scaled, you're going to see a drastic difference between the two. And a lot of people who aren't savvy in the miniatures industries, like a lot of the current 3D printing crowd, haven't got the background like I have, where you've grown up with metal miniatures and plastic miniatures, where you're making, you're buying models from a shop. These guys are kind of buying files from online, and they've gone straight into printing them, and they're using them for like D&D games that they would have previously used, pen and paper for. And it's just, they found 3D printers, think this is great. When lockdown was happening, you can't leave your house to go to a hobby shop, but you can do what you can do get yourself a 3D printer and just print all this stuff off at home. But if you haven't got a hobby to start with and you're not into miniatures and you just develop a 3D printer, you think that's cool technology, I can do something with that, that'll keep me busy. You then have all of these miniatures at your hands that you can print off quite small, quite easily, quite quick, with a nice bit of detail, and they look awesome, don't they? You know, if you've got even the slightest hint of some kind of fandom in you, you'll find models out there for it. So you can just go and find what you want, print them off, and jobs are good 'un. But these people then don't have that founding in the hobby. Yeah, it's impossible, mate. It's impossible to you can't print correct anatomical scale at 28mm and 32. If you try to do it without any exaggeration at all, the face becomes just completely blank and inanimate and just really kind of like void of any kind of detail. Hair isn't going to work. You sculpt all these hair strands and you're going to lose them all. The hands are going to be, if they're not holding on to something, you're going to lose fingers. It's going to happen. Gina, 3D printer, hands down, no doubt in my mind whatsoever, Sonic Mini 4K. Frozen Sonic Mini 4K. For miniatures, if and Rich and Kev and Toby, they can all vouch for this. Any models you have ever had off me in person, if you've got them off me at ChillCon or UK Games Expo or anything else, they've all been printed on my Sonic Mini 4K. I use the Frozen Aqua 4K resin, and everything's printed at 25 micron layer height. And you'll see with 8 levels of anti-aliasing, and 20% grey blur. So Kev's McFarlane's stuff's bigger, isn't it? You're talking like 6 inch plus. So when you're dealing with these larger sized figurines, you don't need to make those allowances in quite the same way. So you can still they still stylize a little bit, so the anatomy is not 100% accurate. There's a lot of kind of comic book styling going on, but they can keep more realistic proportions because they're going bigger. So if you look at my Barbarian pin-up model, yes, Gina, it's okay. I'm going to send you to this one. Hang on a sec. I've got another one which is in the works at the moment. There you go. You can use that one for now, and that'll take you to all the STL files. And I've got a storefront on Only Games. So onlygames.co, they do a load of like printing for me. They do them in DLP. The models are really nice quality. So I'm just trying to read and catch up on the conversation here. So Rich says, yeah, I printed a human fighter just to compare your resin, and it's nuts how detailed yours are compared to my Mars 2K. So yeah, you will find there's a difference between the two. On a Mars 2K, if you try the Amira Labs AMD 5 resin, I think, or possibly the TGM 7 resin, they're really fast curing resins. So like I think when I had a Mars a while back now, I think Toby's got my old Mars, I'm sure I was running about 8 or 9 seconds. Or it might have been between 7 and 9 seconds a layer at 25 microns. So your layer height, your layer times will be like, you know, maybe if you're printing at thicker layer thicknesses like 50, you might be talking like 12 to 15 seconds. The new mono screens that you're seeing everywhere, you're doing like 2 seconds a layer. So the Sonic Mini 4K, you're going to do 2.6 seconds a layer on my one. So that's in the UK with our crappy temperatures. You need the resin to be quite thin and runny, so the less viscous it is, the better. If it's colder, it's going to be thicker and it's going to need more exposure time to kind of compensate for that. But the what was I saying? The 2K printer using the AMD resins, I managed to get the print time down to about five seconds or so. About 5 seconds or so. So by having a shorter exposure time, you get crisper details. And I got prints of a level of quality almost equal to what I would get on the 4K now using that resin. Okay, so the Anycubic 8K, Gina, is a fantastic printer, but all of the consumables are going to be a lot more expensive. And when you look at a 4K printer, the Sonic Mini 4K, and you also have the Sonic Mini 8K as well now, the 4K and the 8K, under a microscope, under macro lens viewing, you'll see sharper detail on the 8K. When you print the models in your hand and you've got them on a table in front of you, you're not going to see the difference. And if there's detail on the model that can't show up on a 4K printer that you can get with an 8K printer, you are not going to be able to keep that detail once you paint the model. So as soon as you put any paint on it, the extra detail that you can get on an 8K versus a 4K is gone. And the screen price, so what you got to remember is the screen is a consumable. So at some point you are going to have to replace the screen, and they say it's like $2,500 or something like that. So you'll get a good amount of printing out of it before you have to change it. But some point down the line you're going to have to change the screen. The Sonic Mini 4K screen is about 90. I think the 2K screen is like the Mars one. They're running around about £45 a screen. The Sonic Mini 4K screen, or the 4K screens out there at the moment, they're about £95. And the last time I checked, the 8K screen for the Sonic Mini is about £176. So what you've got to kind of look at is, and you also need 8K resin to be able to get the benefit of the 8K resolution, which is a completely different kettle of fish, and you're looking at a much higher price per litre. So you've got more. So the pixel size, I want to say it's something like 20 micron pixel resolution, versus like the Sonic Mini 4K has got like 35 microns. So the 8K it's basically just a flex more than anything else, just to say they can do it and get it out there and say, we've done this, we're the first to the market. But if anybody hasn't seen it, if you don't follow him already, Ross at Fohammer, he's done a whole load of comparisons. So the dude went out and bought the Sonic Mini 8K. He bought the Anycubic DLP printer, which, honest to God, looks amazing, and the technology is incredible. But again, very expensive. Consumables are more expensive, and etc. But having spoken to him, and we've pulled up comparisons, he's brought a load of models along to the show, to Chilcom, to show me. He's printed a load of my models in 8K on the Sonic Mini 8K, and you put them next to the ones I got in my cabinet that were done on my Sonic Mini 4K, and you'd be hard pressed to tell which one was which. So all the extra cost of the extra cost in the resin, the extra cost on the screens, is completely redundant, because again, by the time you've painted it, you've lost all of that detail. Even the thinnest few coats of paint, and I paint in glazes, and I know full well I'm going to lose all of that. And again, when you're looking at a lot of the models now, they're sculpted to look nice on the screen. They're not necessarily sculpted to be a miniature. So you always kind of need to have that in the back of your mind when you're looking at stuff, is how is this going to look on the table. And the best thing to do really is if you take the model and zoom it out to a point where you kind of go, that's what I'm going to be looking at, then you go for it. If it looks good at a thumbnail distance, then that's realistically what you're going to be dealing with. If it only looks good when it's this big, then you're kind of got to go, hang on a minute, this is this is something I need to kind of back off from. And yeah, Rich, the Anycubic DLP printer is incredible. The Anycubic Ultra that they did the detail on it is spectacular. You can get some really, really sharp detail. It's the DLP. Although the technology is completely different, the result you get is fairly similar, except it's very accurate. So if the best way I can like it. So I've got a DLP printer sat here next to me on my desk, and it's an Asiga Pico 2 HD. Now, I bought this printer in 2016 to make master models for my miniature range when I was doing resin miniatures back then. Yeah, it is. It's a dental printer, Rich. The companies that sell it, they're dental companies, and they use it for dental stuff and for jewellery primarily. But when I was doing it, the only printer that was on the market commercially was like the Form 1, and the Form was like, it was okay. It was expensive for what it was, and having had test models done on it, it wasn't up to standards. It didn't meet my kind of expectations for quality. So I bought the Pico, and it cost me about 11 grand, and it's got a build plate the size of a business card. I'm not even exaggerating, it literally is the size of a business card, like exactly, and it's got a 35 micron pixel resolution, but it's a DLP printer. And even taking a model that's been done on the Sonic Mini, which uses the same pixel resolution, the DLP one comes out sharper, it comes out crisper, but the resin's like £280 a litre plus VAT. The resin vats are £100 a piece, and they're consumable. They literally have a microchip on them that you have to put on, and that microchip runs out. It runs out of like uses. Even if you manage to keep the build plate alive until you get to the end of the use, it kind of goes, nah, that's it now. You can't use this anymore, and you have to throw it away. And I reckon it's good for about a litre. So like for 1 litre of printing, 1 litre of resin, I'm paying 280 quid for the resin itself, plus 100 quid for the VAT, and then I've got to swap it over on the next one. And then the worst thing is when you get a failure on these things, there's no glass screen straight below. You've got a void that takes you into the middle of the printer, and there is nothing worse than coming and finding a failed print on your printer and an empty build plate, an empty VAT, because that means that all of that resin that was in there, the 280 quid of resin, has leaked to the inside of your printer, and you've got to then try and clean it all up and get it functioning again. It's not fun, I tell you. It's a terrifying thing to use, but the detail is fantastic on it. Now the DLP printers, they've done that now as a consumer thing, so you can buy it. The Anycubic Ultra is a really, really good printer, but now they've done the Anycubic D2. So the fault with the Ultra was it had like a 4-inch build plate or something like that, so it was quite a small build space. And now they've done the D2, which is the precursor, the precursor to the what do you call it, the Ultra, and they've kind of fixed this resolution issue, the screen size. So they've given it a higher resolution projector, and they've given it a larger build plate. So it's actually got, I believe it's got a better resolution than the Ultra, because of the very, the increase in resolution on the projector itself. But you have to use like the Craftsman resin again, which I think is a bit more expensive to kind of get the use out of it. But yeah, they've done really good. They've come on leaps and bounds, and like everything's just improved so much. I mean, I've been looking back at some of my early models, and like. It's going to sound really weird now, but my early models, I toned the detail down because of the technology. So I was aware that I can get more detail out of my models, but I had to pull it back a little bit because I knew there was a limitation to the technology at the time, the 2K printing. And whilst me and Hayley have been getting our new website up and running, and she's been going through doing some of the renders, I'm kind of going, well, you need to hang back a little bit off that one, because I'm not happy with the model, I need to go back and just, you know, refine some of the details, sharpen a few bits up, and, you know, polish it a little bit, because it was done for the 2K market, not the 4K market. And I think 4K is the standard that most people are going to be using these days. So anybody who's printed dies on now, no one's going to go out and buy a 2K printer. They're going to go for a DLP, or they're going to go for at least a Sonic Mini 4K. And the Sonic Mini 4K, that would be my go-to any day of the week for anybody. Anybody says online, if I ever see the group, you know, in a chat popping up saying, you know, I'm looking at getting into 3D printing, I want to print miniatures, what should I buy? Sonic Mini 4K, Frozen 4K Aqua Resin, every day. So yes, I've gone off a huge tangent here. So back to who was it who asked the question? Skyhawk 46. So the scaling, it's literally down to experience. So I've sculpted miniatures that were intended to be on a tabletop with other miniatures. They had to look right. They had to be the same. I've done conversion work on actual miniatures. So I know, like, a belt, for example, is going to look about 3 inches thick, as an example. A cloth t-shirt is going to be about 1 inch thick, say, which, you know, it's not realistic at all, but that's how it's going to look on a miniature. No worries, I'm always happy to chat 3D printing and anything else, mate. So I've been doing it longer than most hobbyists now, because I've obviously picked it up a couple of years before the original, like, Anycubic Photon came out, and the original Mars printer. So, you know, I've learned the hard way before everybody had resources and you know, the internet's help on stuff. So yeah, there's just a lot of experience goes into sculpting these things and knowing how things are supposed to look. And then the other thing you'll find as well is a lot of the guys who come from a video games background, when they're sculpting a miniature, they will have they'll have been sculpting things in T-pose, and that T-pose model is going to go off and get rigged, and then the physics engine in the game or whatever it's going into, that's going to do the work for them in terms of making the cloth move and everything else. When you're doing a miniature, you don't have that luxury. You kind of do a little bit, because like Zbrush now, it's got like a physics engine of its own. You can kind of do like drapery, but it looks like physics generated drapery, do you know what I mean? And with miniatures, you still need it to be a bit stylized, and you can just tell when it's been done, and they don't necessarily get the, you know, how to make it work, how to make it look right, and you see these like little inaccuracies and the little issues and stuff, and ultimately what it comes down to is just knowing how to sculpt it. Just knowing how to sculpt it more than anything else. Just, you know, just getting a feel for it. And for anybody that's looking to get into miniatures sculpting, I would always say go out and buy some Games Workshop models, because you may not like them as a company, you might not agree with the pricing, you might not agree with like their kind of monopoly on the market to whatever extent or whatever. You might not agree with any of their business practices, but you can't deny that they make good models. And they've been doing it for a really long time, and these guys have got huge teams doing the sculpting, art direction, approval on models and stuff like that. Most creators like myself, I am my own approver. If I like the look of a model when it's done, I'll put it out there, and some people will do the same thing, but without having the same sense of whether it's right or not. They are happy with it themselves, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. So unless you've got that experience to kind of like that critical eye to kind of question yourself and kind of say, well, this doesn't look right, then it will go out. And this is one of the issues you'll have in the 3D printing market, is there is not that level of quality control. And even in some of the bigger studios, I'm not going to name any studios, but having looked at the models that some of them release, I would never have signed them off. For various reasons, but I think a lot of people just buy them and hoard them and don't actually print them and see there's a problem. And I don't think a lot of models are necessarily designed to be printed. They're designed to look nice and to sell, and then by the time anybody questions it, it's, you know, so far down the line, and it's like one file out of 10,000 they've got in library. They'll just go off and print something else. So it's weird. It's a weird market. Yeah, no worries, Kev. Get yourself to bed, mate. It's getting on. I'll be clocking off in a little bit myself anyway, because I need to go back up to bed. Got an early morning with the kids tomorrow, getting them ready for school and stuff. So little one's going through the whole I don't want to go to school kind of business. She's only just started nursery at the moment, so it's a big shift up from where she was at before. You know what I mean? Couple of mornings a week, whatever, going into like five school days. It's a killer for her. Take it easy, mate. Thanks for tuning in. So yeah, it's like I say, you don't get this level of sign off on a lot of the models now. So anybody going into miniature sculpting or getting into miniature sculpting, no matter what your background is, the first thing you need to be doing is buy some actual physical models from Games Workshop, or Corvus Belli, get some Infinity models in, depending on what you're trying to sculpt. Get some actual physical miniatures, and it could be 40k, it could be Warhammer Fantasy, it could be one of the specialist games. Lord of the Rings is a good one, fantastic for the miniatures. But pick actual proper miniatures from an actual recognised miniatures brand company who's putting their money where their mouth is, and copy them. Now, I'm not saying copy the models and release those models, because that's obviously a completely different kettle of fish. That's getting into all sorts of IP infringement, and you're going to find yourself on a chopping block. But buy the models, sculpt them as practice, and study them. Really get your head into it, and make sure you look at every little bit of detail and how they've approached the various different techniques and the various different fabric. And yeah, night models, Gina, are awful at times. So I think I only ever bought one. I really wanted an Iron Man model, and I bought one of their I bought an Iron Man model from them, and I really regretted it afterwards. The best thing about it was the little cobblestone base that came with it, the little plastic cobblestone bases. But yeah, it's I'm trying to think. Some of the Infinity ones, the Corvus Belli ones, they're a nightmare to assemble, and I really wish they would just go for 3D printing, and like issue the models as single piece STLs, because particularly with some of like the female infantry that they do, and the female troops, they have there's such dynamic poses and they look incredible, but then you've got these tiny little shoulders that may be like a millimetre across, that are holding some like big ass gun, and you just don't have the strength in the connection, the joint, to be able to. You haven't got enough mass to pin it. If you try and drill it, you're going to drill the whole thing out, and you've lost it. So you've got no strength in the joints, and it really bugs me because they're such beautiful minis. And I know if I was 3D printing it, I could just kind of go right. I can just pop this out on a build plate, and it's one piece, and that's it. Jobs are good 'un. But no, you have to assemble, and they're all metal. Everything's metal, so it's that much more delicate because there's so much more weight to the joints. That big chunky gun that they're holding, it's got some serious heft to it in comparison to the shoulder where it actually mounts to the body. So yeah, it's one of these kind of things where the market has grown so rapidly, and there's a huge influx of people who are coming from different industries, and they're not all hobbyists. So people need to start buying models. They need to copy the models and learn from them, and ideally print and paint your own products. And again, if you saw my stuff at Chilcon, there was a cabinet full of stuff that was I painted myself, and I learned from that. And some of the models I've painted, I've kind of gone back afterwards and I've kind of gone, I really need to sort this out because that caused me problems. And it's a learning point. And I may not have gone back and sorted it on that particular model, because go back and revisiting everything you've ever done is not really feasible all the time. But I will definitely learn from that mistake and apply it to the next model I do. So you won't find those things cropping up on subsequent releases, and it's only by seeing the hobby through to the end point where you're playing with models, you're painting the models and everything else, that you really kind of can appreciate what you're making. So I know that's a really kind of like round houses kind of way of explaining how to deal with it, but how answering the question about the approaching scale. But that's the reality of it. You only do it by learning from mistakes, and if you don't know you're making mistakes, you're not going to learn from them. So the only way to learn from them is to be printing the models yourself. By printing the models, you'll see all the issues that are going to cause by printing. So you need to be printing stuff, and then by painting the models, you learn what a pig's ear you're making for somebody to have to try and paint. And then when you make all the mistakes yourself, and you can't paint your own model, then you kind of go, well, hang on a minute, I've screwed up here. I've done something wrong. I need to address it. And it's things like eyes, eyelids. People sculpt eyes on models, and they do eyelids that look realistic, or they put eyelashes on them that look realistic, and they're never going to work. They're not going to show up. And worst case scenario, they kind of mangle up the eye socket and cause issues when you're putting like washes and things in there, and it gives you a full sense of the shapes and stuff because there's too much detail in a small space. Or the eyelids are so thin that they just blend into the eyeball, and you get a weird kind of non-entity of a facial feature. So yeah, there's a whole load of stuff you've got to kind of like learn from and kind of like incorporate. I've done lots of talking and no sculpting, but I'm enjoying myself. I hope it's informative for you at least, if there's so I'm just going to use the tools here and do a little bit of actual sculpting. I'm just going to use the there we go. Let's turn my dynamic tessellation now. So low intensity, high draw size, and then use it with a plus and a minus modifier. So the inverse version of it as well, and that will let you kind of do some folds in the skirt. And I just want to straighten up some of these lines. So what I don't want is, let me just polish this and diminish it. What I don't want is, see this like wobbly line here, this bit, this big bulge at the top, got to go. So I need to level that out and smooth it through. So I'm just going to use the move tool just to nudge until I've got the kind of profile I want. Same for this bit here, I want that to be more straight. This bit is wrong again, so I'm just going to straighten it in, smooth them through. The weight of the folds needs to be at the bottom, so fairly straight or billowing outwards depending upon the direction of the wind that we apply to the model at the end. You always need to look at the model from different angles to see how it looks. And you can always go back and change stuff, and when I pose the models, I'm going to have to redo most of this anyway. Yeah, one of the things you see is like people will make models, and they'll use the same techniques they would do for a video game thing. So you'll have a skirt that's been animated, well, not animated, but yeah, I'm going to say animated. So they use God, I can't remember. I don't use it myself, so I can't remember where it lives in Zbrush now. But there's a physics engine they incorporated. So what I could do here is I can mask off the top here. This needs to be hollow in the middle, so it's like a single skin, thin, like a single skin of a model. No polygons in that whole centre mass. And then when you do that, you turn on a collision modifier that makes the rest of the model solid. and then the masked bit is like the hem where it's held in place. Everything that's not masked then will just droop, like actual cloth. And I think you can set weight to it, so it works more like leather or cloth or silk or whatever. So you can change the weight of it, and then when it falls onto the model, it creates a kind of a form, and it will fold as if it was actual cloth. And it depends how much geometry in there, so how much detail you get in that. But you then have to add some thickness to it, so that there's like a modifier you can use that will add some thickness to the cloth. But you're still going to end up with something that's hollow. So this whole cavity here, which I know I want to be solid, is going to end up as like a single skin, like a really, really thin actual skirt. And again, that's fine if you're just doing a render. So, and again, you may not know this, but Zbrush is actually classed as a 2.5D program. So you can use it for 3D, absolutely. But if I don't touch the screen for a minute, you're going to see lots of really lovely renders of models. And these are things that are done by other artists and loaded onto Zbrush Central, which is like a website where you can like show off your work and stuff, get some tips and things. And they use the 3D model along with like external rendering engines and texturing systems and things like Substance Painter and things like that. And they use the 3D model to make 2D art. So it's a 2.5D. And if you look at the interface of ZBrush, it's not like things like 3D Studio Max and Maya. It's more like Photoshop. And if you think of it as being like Photoshop when you're trying to learn ZBrush, it makes it a lot more learnable. So if you're familiar with Photoshop, you're using brushes, layers, modifiers and things like that in the same way that you would in ZBrush, in Photoshop, sorry. So except you just do it in 3D. And that's that if you can get that kind of thinking into your head, it makes it easier to get your head around it and to learn. But yeah, so because they're making models that are designed to be a 2D image at the end of the day using 3D assets, you don't need to worry about the printability side of things. Obviously you can still use it for actual 3D work, for making miniatures and everything else, and it's the kind of the go-to tool for most 3D artists. And yeah, and that's it. And you need to sculpt it, don't you? The only real way to get cloth to look right on a miniature is to physically sculpt it and to just understand drapery. Just look at how it's done on other miniatures. Have a look at Paul Hicks models. He does a lot of historical stuff for Footsore, and probably other brands. But if you go to Footsore Miniatures, have a look at their Gangs of Rome stuff, and the Baron's War range that he's done is just awesome. Beautiful miniatures. And he's done so many like cloaks and robes and things like that. There's so much to look at. But just check out how he's done drapery. And that's how you do it. I mean, that's how it's done. Huge, great, big, fat, chunky, sculpted, stylized, just like I'm doing now. To get effects in it, and you've got to kind of consider how it's going to be painted. So, I'm going to use, for the most part, I'll probably start with a base colour. I'll do a painting session actually, but that was nice. That was nice and Ormsky. I'm really looking forward to the next Kickstarter delivery actually, because I've got I did their scenery for the last couple of Kickstarters for them on the Baron's War. So if you saw Wimentum Village on the Death and Taxes Kickstarter, the village was all me, so I made all of that for them. And then the last Kickstarter, there was the Crusader Fort, the roadside fortress, and I did that for them as well. So you don't often see terrain from me unless you're buying stuff from Footsore, really. But yeah, I've got the I can't remember what the pledge is called now, but I've got about I want to say it's about 80 models or something coming from the next from the last Kickstarter, which are all like Crusaders and Knights Templar and the Islamic troops during the Crusades. So I've got a nice set of them coming to me, so at some point I need to take a break from painting my own models and get me head into them. But I'm really looking forward to them ones arriving. And Paul's done a fantastic job on well, on all of them really, but the Templars particularly really kind of like, you know, really float my boat on them. Right up my street. I've got the Templars from the previous one, the previous Kickstarter. There was like a set of 4 of them. There was a like no-brainer adding them to my pledge. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll have a few. There we go. I'll pop them on the short side. So yeah, another thing you'll find on a lot of my designs, I like asymmetry. I don't like everything on a model to be symmetrical. If I end up sculpting something that is mostly symmetrical, I'm going to do a lot of stuff that's going to break that. Completely busted up. I wonder if my lovely wife's tuned in at any point tonight. She'll be in the house wondering when I'm coming up, and she'll have to tune into Twitch to see how far along I am for finishing. Yeah, it's been a weird one for her actually, guys. I think I might have mentioned in my previous stream, but she's been like a teacher. Well, not like a teacher. She literally was a teacher. She's teaching like nursery kids and reception, year 1, like these really young kids, like up to about 6 years old or something like that, 5, 6 years old. That was kind of her age range that she was teaching. So she did that for got to be like 15 years. And then, if anybody's a teacher, or if you know teachers, you'll know how hard work it is, how thankless it is, all the issues you get, and then obviously through lockdown, how difficult it was dealing with the whole remote learning business. And it was just stressing her out. It was causing her all sorts of like issues, and you know, I've seen her stressed before over loads of stuff, but it was just getting worse and worse and worse, and she was just unhappy. Yeah, she just wasn't happy doing teaching. And I kind of think at the moment, I think you've got to be a bit of a mug to go into teaching, because they don't pay well enough for it. People who don't know teachers think, you know, oh, you get 6 weeks off in the summer holidays, it's cushy, you know, you finish your job at 3:30. You have that conversation with an actual teacher, and you'll see murder in their eyes. They don't like it at all. And the reality is, it's just not how it is. It never goes like that, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. It's just been one drama after another with that school. Change for change's sake a lot of the time, it seems, you know. Just as she's getting into the swing of things, you think, oh, I can just reuse last year's planning, it'll be ace. No, it doesn't happen. They change the format, or they change the curriculum, or they move her into another year group. She has to start again. And the problem with my Hayley is it's not a problem at all. but she's too diligent for her own good. So she's one of those who will just keep kind of just accepting the extra workload. And she'll be in school till like 6 o'clock of the night, marking books and getting the class ready for the next day, and then coming home on the night and then working till 11, 12 o'clock after we've got the kids into bed and stuff like that, getting back on the laptop, doing more planning, marking, all the other bureaucratic nonsense that the school's arbitrarily decided that they need them to do, which doesn't benefit anybody. And then it's just all of that kind of stuff that just burns them out. And she was on full burnout at the school. So I was just like, I need to get you out of there, no matter what. Just come and work with me. So eventually she did, and she accepts me for who I am, with the nerdishness and everything. But God, she's had a challenge adapting to it herself. Do you know what I mean? And Chilcon was her first outing to any kind of hobby convention. If I've ever gone to one before, I've only ever really been to myself as a delegate, as a trader, to be fair. But apart from like the Games Workshop game days and stuff, I used to enter the painting competitions. But yeah, the cold tea now. Tasty. Not. But yeah, like I've had to teach her the difference between a paladin and a cleric, a wizard and a sorcerer, all these kind of things. That you go, they're the same. They're not the same. Don't say that. Don't tell anybody in the industry that. They will reject you. But yeah, it's she's adapted really well. She's got her head around it all. She now knows like various differences, various terminologies. She's rendered up all the characters. She's done all the render composites. She's still like getting angry at me because my naming conventions aren't always consistent. And yeah, no, totally. trying to kind of like gradually nerd her up. I'm building up to bringing her in to an actual D&D campaign, because my little and Jacob, he's really desperate. He's been talking all the last couple of days now about doing some more sculpts. We did his little beholder sculpt, which I obviously put up on a web store. So he did his beholder, and ever since I think we made about, there's a couple of £100 in sales when I put it up, and every penny went to him. He's had the lot, and I said to him, like, it's every so often we'll get another sale or another couple of sales, and I say to him, you've had another sale on there, and he's like, can you get me this game then, Dad? Get me a Nintendo Switch download or something. Then you owe me that money. Can I have that? It's like hustler. So he's desperate to get another couple of models sculpted. He's been talking about doing some is it myconoids, the little mushroom guys. So he wants to make a couple of little fungus troopers. We were at Kenilworth Castle today. So if anybody's in the UK, if you're anywhere near the Midlands, it's a beautiful castle to visit. If you've not seen it or you don't know it, just Google it and have a little look online. It's Kenilworth, Kenilworth, and it's I believe during the I want to say it was like the Barons' War period, like the 1400s, but there was basically like the longest siege ever in the British history kind of took place there, and they were doing a reenactment of it today. I want to say it was Henry the... what's she? Lucy's doing mushrooms. I saw it pop up. I was at Kenilworth and it popped up with a test stream, and I just assumed they were testing. I didn't realise she was actually doing doing a sculpt. By the time I tried to tune in, I think I must have finished, but I'll have to catch up on that one later. I'm glad to see she's back on sculpting. Yeah, check Game Tea out, everybody. Go and have a little look at Game Tea. They do fantastic t-shirts and hoodies, and I've got a hip flask which says the tears of my enemies on it. Little metal signs for your house, candles for gamers, the works. Great artwork, lovely crew. Always at the cons as well. They did ChillCon. They were on the opposite side of the hall from where I was. Lucy, one of the, I want to say owners of the company. There's Lucy and AJ. I don't know if anybody else is actually technically an owner there, but they're both fantastic artists. And Lucy's been getting really into like digital sculpting. Did a Kickstarter recently, which is like a load of LGBT D&D characters, and they were, some great sculpts in there. And she's got a really good like catalogue that I don't know if she's selling it, but she did an absolutely awesome mechanical dragon a while back. Proper like steampunk aesthetic to it. It's just like proper, that kind of thing takes some real eyeballing to try and like make it look believable, and I think she nailed it. So yeah, check out Game Tea, give them a follow. They're on Twitch as well. You'll find them on like Facebook, Instagram, I think. But check out the website because it's brilliant. So gametea.co.uk. Okay. Where was I? Oh yeah, Jacob's so he's desperate to get his sculpting going on now. He wants to make his little mushroom guys, a couple of little mushroom troops. And it was because we were at Kenilworth today. He settled on the mushrooms anyway because there was a big oak tree, and it had these huge, massive, great big clusters of fungus that were like half a metre across. There was about a dozen of them, and he just stood there looking at me and went, "Dad, how hard is that?" And then Hayley looked at it. She went, "Well, it's like a mushroom, isn't it? So it's probably not very hard." She went, "No." He says, "Not how hard is it? How hard is it to sculpt?" I went, "What do you mean?" He went, "I'm thinking about making a mushroom man." I'm like, "Fair enough. You want to make a mushroom man, mate? You make a mushroom man." So I think he's off school on Friday and Monday because of teachers' training days. So likelihood he's going to be sat in here on the desk behind me, which I'll have to clear up a bit of space for him, using my graphics tablet and sculpting mushroom men. So I'll share some of them on the stream next week if he's done them. We'll see how he gets on. But he's really getting into it. Yeah, he's got his head screwed on. He really desperately wants to get into D&D, and he's made his character for a Dragonborn rogue, and the Dragonborn rogue called Barash, who's I think he was a brass dragon. I want to say brass dragon. And he's allergic to cats, and every time he's near a cat, it makes him sneeze, and when he sneezes, he ends up setting fire to stuff. And he doesn't know it yet, but we're going to try and get Hayley into the campaign. I'm going to make sure her character's tabaxi. So he's just going to be burning everything with sneezes, which will be quite entertaining. He's actually, in real life, he's actually allergic to dogs, not cats. But yeah, we're going to throw the cat allergy in there and throw him a curveball because I don't think he actually knows about tabaxi yet. So maybe I'm just being cruel. Okay, let's give this dude some greaves, Roman style. Not Roman style, no, heresy, Greek style. I don't want to go Roman on this guy. This is all Greek. We'll do the Spartan style shin guard. I'll just roughly mask out the approximate shape, sharpen up the mask by alt-clicking and tapping the outside border. I'm going to do an extract. That'll do. Right, now, anytime I do this, there's two ways I will handle this, and it depends how it looks afterwards. So I can either mask off just the inside, shrink the inside and just reposition it. Use the scaling tools to try and flatten it out as much as possible, and then just change the proportions of the internals, and that will flatten it out. I know something like this, if I try and just delete that internal face and then fill the hole, it will try and fill it straight across, but because it's got a big curve in there, there's going to be a big curve to the shape, and I don't really want that. So I'm just going to polish, bump the resolution up a touch. Rich, no worries mate, you good having you on board anyway today. Take it easy and have a good night's sleep, mate. I'll probably be on again before, I've got another stream scheduled Wednesday, but I will probably be on maybe one of the evenings or at least a couple of daytimes doing extra streams. Like I said, I need to try and get up to 7 streams before the end of the month, and I'm on 4 now. So I'll schedule one on Wednesday and then a couple of extras to cram in to get that up to that threshold. Okay, so I'm just going to go 300 on this for night Rich anyway, mate. I'll catch up with you again soon. I'll be clocking off myself shortly because my wife's going to be absolutely chomping at a bit, wondering where I'm at. Yeah, it's you too, mate. I've seen your message popping up in Discord as well, I think, so I'll get on there and check that out later on. When I'm in bed, probably. You take it easy, man. Okay, so yeah, so that's my rough shape I'm going to use. Oops, I've faux pas there, which you see I've pulled the mesh through from the other side. You just have to be careful with that sometimes because it happens when you're working with a high intensity brush and you're very near the surface of the on the other side. It can affect the other side of the model as well, and you tend to find it pulls through from the front, so you'll end up with like a hole in the model, and then the bit you've pulled through, it'll end up completely flat, and it'll be like a 1 pixel thickness. And if you try and print that, you've killed it. It's not going to work. So I'm gonna leave that there for now. I'm gonna resume this tomorrow morning, I think, possibly Tuesday. While I'm doing this, I'll log on a stream again. So why not? In fact, let's just give him a boot first. In fact, he's just gonna have straps around there because I want him to be barefoot, don't I? So I'll just extract that switch ready to go. Reduce the thickness down a bit. Nice. That'll be the basis of some straps to go around his feet. I'm just going to delete the internal geometry on that and then close the holes so it's solid. And again, if you've not seen the previous streams, the reason for doing it completely solid. Oh, thanks, Gina. It's just lots of practice. Honestly, it is. I've been doing it as a full-time job since January 2020, just before COVID hit. So literally every day of my life when I'm working is just doing this kind of stuff, or awful admin tasks that I don't want to do. And like I say, I've been sculpting digitally now since 2010. So what's that, 12 years or give or take. So yeah, it's just lots of practice. But thank you. It's just figuring out what works. And ZBrush is so full of tools as well. It really is one of those things that it can, you know, like if you buy a paint set, you buy one of those massive, great big mega paint sets from like Vallejo or something like that, and it's got like 250 paints. And you look at it and you go, yes, I'm going to get that. Let's paint everything, all the colours. And then when you actually get around to it, you find you use about a dozen colours. And you rarely touch the other ones. And every so often you kind of go, I'm going to make an effort to use something different. I'm going to go and try and do that. And you'll dabble in it and you'll find a new little favourite, and it's exactly the same. You've got this huge palette of tools at your disposal. And there's a huge, there's a small staple core in the middle of it that I always go back to. The clay build-up brush, clay brush, snake hook, move topological, trim dynamic, all crack, planar, inflate, slice curve, mask lasso, insert mesh dot. Hey, Mr. Snowyak's back, the island painter. How you doing, man? Good to have you in again. So yeah, so like all of these tools that I've got kind of anchored on the right hand side of my page here. These are like the ones that I would use as a go-to. And most of my sculpting is done with nothing but these. And once in a while I'll change it up and I'll go and use something else. And then sometimes I regret it and I go back to end up what I was doing. And once in a while I find something new that I like and I add it back to my list. I've got the knife curve brush here. This thing needs to come off my shortcuts fast because every so often I use it and whenever I do it crashes ZBrush. Literally like instant crash straight to desktop without even a blink of an eyelid. And then I'm just standing here screaming at my screen, swearing. It might make for some entertaining viewing, but God, it's stressful. So yeah, I use the slice curve brush and Dynamesh with group masks now, or Dynamesh with groups on, and that kind of solves it and kind of gets around it. So I'm just using the inflate slider here now to just add a bit of volume to that, so it's got a bit of thickness to it. And then I'll go down to my Dynamesh menu, boost my Dynamesh up, do a polish on it. I've got to turn groups off because there's other groups. And there we go. And then I'll just I'll use all cracks and oh, nice. Which one did you paint? Was it one of the new ones or one of the original sets? Mr. Snowyaks just said he's painted one of my mercenaries today. Yeah, mate, post it on Discord. I'd love to see it. Right, this is gonna bug the hell out of me now. But I'm sculpting these bandages, and I've left symmetry on, which means they're gonna look identical on each leg. So I'm gonna have to go in and break that symmetry because I can't have that. Oh yeah, that's oh god, is it Sal? I think. One of the original set. I batch painted all of them when I did them. I kind of found it easier to do it that way round. Just like painting all the same bits of one model rather than trying to like finish one all the way through and they painted up quite quick, to be fair. I've got the new set over here as well. Got the heavy armour guys. You can see them on that look. I'm quite pleased with these. They came out really nice actually. I don't know if you've seen it as well, but yeah, I bet it is. I'll show you my painting table another day. I'm going to be doing some painting streams at some point, so I'll share my painting workspace. I did this one recently. I don't know if you're familiar with Jazza on YouTube. He's been on in the background for my streams, for my work for ages now. I tend to watch his like Draw with Jazza channel, where he's doing like all his artwork bits. But he's had a channel running for a while now called Tabletop Time, which is all about doing tabletop miniatures and stuff. And he's come to me to do some sculpts for him, and one of the ones I did was this one. It's called Hypatia. So he's basically they've done this like MOBO type tabletop game, and it's I believe it's supposed to be like League of Legends or something like that. But she's a 40mm scale, I think was the scale we went to, So she's bigger than the normal models, but it obviously just makes her a bit nicer to paint. I did that one, and I did this little guy called Scrap. In fact, let me just find the renders I did for him. That was a grind then. My hard drive's suffering a bit. The old ones that I'm plugged into a dock. Right, so go right to the bottom of the list. Here we go. That's Hypatia. Don't know if that's the final version. Actually, I think there was a pose tweak. I think it might have been a pose tweak from that one. In fact, yeah. Do you know what? It's that one. That's the final version. So she's available if you go onto My Manufacturing and have a look at tabletop time. I think I don't know if it's tabletop time or it's just called tabletop time. They've got a page on there which has got a selection of different figures. So there's this one here, which I say I've sculpted, and then there was another one called Scrap. And Scrap was a bit of a challenge because it was a model that somebody else started and then abandoned before it was finished, and then somebody else had come in and had to go with it, and that one wasn't finished either. And then once I picked it up, the brief changed quite a bit, and the end sculpt was probably I think, aside from the backpack and the face, was like all my work. So it was quite a difficult one to have to do to try and pick up and finish somebody else's sculpt. I've done it this one time, and I've been asked to do another one, which is a similar kind of thing where I've got to fix something that somebody else has made that's not castable, and it's never a fun job. It's always one of those kind of, you know, like a thankless task trying to go and deal with it. But you know, it's a job at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So just get on and do it. I can't even find Scrap. I don't know where I put him. Do you know what? I think I've got him. No, I've got the file, but I can't find the renders of them. Yeah, it don't matter anyway. Oh, did he? I didn't realise. I've got my head down at the moment, so I've not been catching up on stuff. I have to try and like catch up in big chunks. Did he explain about the to and fro saga with Scrap? I hope he told everybody how amazing I am to work with. how I saved the day. I'm hoping he's got a bit more for me. I quite enjoyed working with Jazza, actually. He's a nice guy. I'm definitely working with him again. So yeah, I showed it earlier. I'm going to be wrapping up in a minute because I'm lagging and I need to get to bed. Before I do, I'm just going to pull that crystal collapse one up again. I showed it earlier in the stream, and I know there's a few people on the stream now, but obviously you would have seen. You might not have seen that particular bit. Oh, fantastic. I need to tune in on that one and give him a bit of love back then. So yeah, where am I looking again? Yeah. So yeah, it's a crystal collapse I'm just going to mention it again before I do clock off. It's a project I'm working on with a chap called Max. Max may be on the stream still now, but he's in Germany. It's going to be like after midnight for him, 12:30. So I hope he's not online. I hope he's gone to bed. He's got a little one like me, so he's going to be up on an early one in the morning for school runs. But this model is her name's Victoria. She's the third character that I'll have made for Crystal Collapse. So we're going to be we're working on a game together. We'll be bringing the game to Kickstarter early next year. Hopefully around about like Easter time, I think. So the game's pretty well play tested. We've refined a lot. We've tweaked a lot of the rules. We've got it to a point where it's slick and smooth. It plays really nice. It's quite easy to pick up, and we've got these beautiful drawings that have been done for it, the beautiful aesthetic going on. So it's very kind of like Final Fantasy, what do you call it? Was it Grand Blue? No? Yeah, Grand Blue Fantasy kind of thing. It's got that kind of Japanese JRPG aesthetic about it, and that's what we're aiming for. So both Max and myself, huge Final Fantasy fans. So there's a lot of inspiration being drawn from. Oh yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I hadn't spotted that, but yeah, you're right. It's got the skirt and the leather bits and bobs and the leg braces. Not braces, greaves, aren't they, on your legs? Yeah, she has got a bit of Greek about her actually. Even the little leafy thing on her head. So yeah, we're going to bring the Kickstarter with like 2 factions to start with, plus a couple of mercenaries. So that'll be the base offer, and we've got loads of characters ready for stretch goals. So we'll go for 4 factions eventually. The second and third factions with a TH. Second and third factions, or third and fourth factions rather. They'll probably come with expansion packs, so extra campaigns, a new game board, more cards, equipment cards and things like that. So, and possibly like a big bad guy to battle with. So, we've got the first one's going to be set in like a crystal mine, as like a kind of a setting, and then there's like a whole story that kind of builds into that. And the campaign is like a story narrative. There'll be a couple of like learner scenarios to play to start with. I think we're looking at about like 6 campaign missions, 6 scenarios for the campaign. And we're trying to include some like JRPG type elements. So if you've ever played like Final Fantasy Tactics or Ogre Tactics, or the new ones, Triangle Strategy, and is it Diofield Chronicle, I think it's called. Literally just came out this week, where they're kind of like turn-based strategies on a grid map and everything else. It's got that kind of feel to the game. But yeah, really, really good. Really can't wait to start showing it off to you. We're going to do a stream soon on Tabletop Simulator, where we can show off the game, and then we're going to be inviting you to come and join us as well. So if anybody wants to get in on the play testing and have a go of it, then we'll let you join our playtesting group, and dial you in on Tabletop Simulator so you can play it for yourself, all set up. So I've showed that now. Let me just show you again the table. So this is a screenshot of our game that we played last week. This week, sorry. I think it was Wednesday night. I think we had the session. It might be Thursday night, but so we've got, the game uses playing cards. So you've got 4 characters. Each of the characters is represented by one of the suits, and each of the suits basically performs a certain function in the game. I forget what they are. I think it's leader, overseer, collapser, and breaker, or something like that. It's something along those lines. So we're using a mix of D10s, D4 and D20. D6s we're just using as like tracker dice to keep tabs on health points. We have treasure chests in the game. We've got like loot to pick up, certain objectives and whatnot. So we've got like capture the flag mode. We've got like king of the hill type things. So the kind of things you see on like the multiplayer games online. And then it uses a mixture of the dice and cards to give you a really nice mixture of strategy and luck. Characters have all got a bunch of skills they can use, and on top of the skills we've also got like a set of like limit breaks, so you've got that real Final Fantasy feel about it. So yeah, it's a really cool game, really slick and smooth. Max has done a fantastic job polishing the rule set and coming up with the concept and everything else. And like I say, together we've like refined it and we've built it up a little bit. So yeah, it's looking good. Yeah, did I say I've tried playing like various games, Gina, and it's lately I've got Blackstone Fortress and I've got Blood Bowl that I was planning on trying to play with my son. It's a little bit difficult to get your head around some of those. Even just the basic concepts of them are a bit tricky at times. And my son's 7 years old, so it's he picked up Zombicide in a heartbeat, and he's subsequently gone on to teach other people to play Zombicide, so that he can play with them. So Zombicide, second edition, he's absolutely got his head around it. That is like a perfect game for noobs to like get your head around. It's so well structured in terms of how it's organised. And I said to Max, one of the things we need to do is we need to make sure that Crystal Collapse has that same ease of pickup, because I don't want to be at a trade show trying to sell the game to people and demo it, or having other people demo it and having the public scratching their heads trying to get their head around the rules. And at the moment it's such a simple game. Having watched like one or two turns, you'll have the basics down. So we just got to get that. We've got to condense all of the rules now into just one side of A4. So you've got that reference sheet, like the kind of like back page of a rule book that the GW used to. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do it. Back page of the rule book was like a crib sheet to, refer to when you were playing. Quick reference guide or whatever. So if we can get that, then yeah, we're singing, we're quids in then. So I'm just going to go and have a little look at Twitch and see who's. Let's not do that. Unless I can mute my. No, I can't. Even if I mute my desktop audio, it's not going to work, is it? Let's turn my speakers off. Anybody got any suggestions who to raid? If there's anybody to raid. Yeah, Hero Quest is a good game. I keep meaning to pick that up. Is the new one suitable? The new version of it, is that suitable for a 7-year-old? Do you think? Is it easy enough to kind of get your head round? Or because I know I played it when I played Advanced Hero Quest, the one with the Skaven and stuff from Games Workshop. I played that one when I was a little. I don't know if it's quite if it's still got that same kind of like ease of play. Anybody got an idea then who to raid at the moment? I haven't even got my phone down there because I left it in the house, but. Yeah, we've talked about a mobile app for Crystal Collapse as well. Actually, good to know they do work. It's one of those kind of things. I weren't sure if it was going to be just like seen as a gimmick. Okay, so let's find somebody who's in the category. Oh, they're all actually just doing artwork. I can't find a painter yet. Evening, Rick. I'm just about to stream out, mate. Go and raid somebody. You got any suggestions who to raid? Are you normally good for it? Finding like I'm still very new to Twitch and this whole raidy business, but let's see if we find D&D. Let's find a D&D channel. Yeah, I'm struggling to find anybody on here at the moment. Who might you guys like? That's the question. Need to pop you on to. No worries, Tobes. You take it easy, mate. I'm sure I'll see you again soon. Oh, it is a difficult decision, isn't it? I do not know. Genuinely, I'm struggling now. I want to drop you off on something that's at least similar to what you've been watching tonight. There just isn't anything around. Oh, I'm literally about to log off. I was going to raid you out to somebody, but trying to find somebody to raid you to is tough work at the moment because everybody that is on, I can't find anybody doing miniature stuff. Gina, anytime, feel free to tune in. There's a couple of past streams on the Twitch channel as well. If you want to go and have a look at the other model I'll be making, I'll be doing that one again on Wednesday, but it's a daytime thing. But yeah, thanks for signing up today and following and whatnot. It's been a pleasure. Let me know if you do pick up a Sonic Mini 4K, by the way. If not the Sonic Mini 4K, the D2, Anycubic D2. If it's a bit more expensive, but it'll be worth it. That'd be my recommendation anyway. Right, I'll tell you what. I'm going to trying to find somebody to raid to. I'm just going to say goodnight to everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Didn't get as much done sculpting wise as I was hoping. Lots of chatting, but yeah, I'm good for it. I'm happy with that. It's nice to chat to you all, and hopefully I've answered some questions and it's been useful for you. So if you've got any other questions, ping them to me on a DM, and next time I stream I'll answer the questions and we'll pull them up and I'll talk through things in detail, and if I need to demo it, I'll demo stuff as well. Okay. Right, cheers guys, thank you all again, and yeah, I'm just going to be logging off now, so thanks for tuning in, and I'll probably be back on tomorrow or Tuesday for another stream. Okay, take it easy all, and yeah, see you again soon. Adios people.